I'm like, wow, I wasn't planning on buying a house, but this is the coolest little neighborhood. I think the Northwest, unless you know, you don't know.
I remember having clients buy homes and all that area was just dirt. There was nothing even out there yet.
When you first pull into Somersett and you start coming down that hill, it's like nothing else in Reno.
So we're back talking about neighborhoods today, and today we're going to talk about the northwest part of Reno. We're going to talk about Somersett, a little bit of Mogul and Verdi. So this is everything north of 80 and west of McCarran. Today we brought Seamus Murphy back on, who lives in this area, so we thought he'd be able to give a little unique perspective about this particular part of Reno. First things first, we were joking about this. We're going to start off right with this. It was a neighborhood that I've sold homes in, and it's a little pocket of Northwest Reno. How do you explain this? Is it off of 4th Street? How do you even get to it?
It's off of West 4th Street. So
Right.
it's 4th Street west of McCarran, right behind Mayberry Park. So when people are like, where do you live? It's, have you ever floated the river?
Right.
Pretty much where everyone starts floating the river.
So this is one part of the Northwest that most people don't even think about, don't even realize. I don't remember what the exact name of your neighborhood actually is, but I do know, we were just joking about this, is that when you go down 4th Street, you literally turn left, you go over some train tracks, you go through some industrial stuff. A lot of times your cell phone doesn't work over there. You go on this weird sort of cross the river, and all of a sudden there's this cool little housing development down there. And so what could you say about your particular neighborhood that we haven't that people may not know about?
I mean, unless you're an Uber driver or a delivery driver, you probably don't know that it even exists.
Right.
And it's nestled up on the other side of the river. And I mean, out my front door, there is the ditch trail.
Yep.
Hiking, mountain biking, great stuff for the dogs. And out the back door is the Truckee River. It is the best of both worlds right there.
So these are those pockets that in our videos that we try to shoot, we try to let people know about some places that they may not be aware about. Now, I know when I first moved to Reno 35 years ago, and I started going to university here, that whole area of the Northwest and everything what I call west of McCarran and north of 80, a lot of that stuff wasn't there yet. It was kind of the new area. I said I came to college in 1989. I think McQueen High School had literally just opened like in 86 or 7. And most of the houses like McQueen, I know people that lived in Verdi and Mogul that literally, you come up on a dirt road, and when you went up to McQueen, there was no houses around that area. And that kind of to me is like what the South Meadows has been like the last, say, 10 or 15 years, where that whole area was nothing really there. There was no shopping. It was just a lot of entry-level houses. And then, of course, Somersett came later. I know that area, like I said, used to be a lot of smaller houses, a lot of affordable houses, and all the schools were new. So it was kind of like in the early 90s, sort of the place to be.
I am the transplant. I lived around the university,
Right.
graduated from Nevada, stayed up there in the university area until the really cool story. I was going to my friend's house in that neighborhood, got out of my car, and I saw him pounding a sign in the house across the street. And my 2 nieces live there, like my best buddy.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I wasn't planning on buying a house, but this is the coolest little neighborhood.
Right.
I think I might go for it.
And these are those neighborhoods that people don't understand. Like, this is where you can find in the Northwest homes that are still, let's say, in the 500s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of smaller, a lot of 30 to 35-year-ish old homes. A lot of them now have had new roofs and new, I would say, the systems. Whenever you start getting 30-year-old homes, you got to start worrying about plumbing and electrical and roof and appliances, just all the general things that, they're not really supposed to last more than 30 years. But because those neighborhoods now are more like 35, pushing 40 years old, a lot of that stuff has now been replaced and done, and it makes great rental houses because you're not far from the university. A lot of other people go to these neighborhoods because McQueen High School is kind of a well-regarded high school. All the schools are relatively new. I say relatively because they're maybe 25 years old. It wasn't like schools I went to that were 100 years old. And so the downside to that first part was there was never a lot of shopping. So unless you were right on McCarran and then eventually used to go up Mayan to Robb Drive, there's a shopping center there now, but I remember having clients buy homes and all that area was just dirt. There was nothing even out there yet. It's an up and coming shopping area, but the homes there have been there for a really long time. It almost seemed like it should have happened sooner, but it definitely is one of those neighborhoods where there is definitely affordable housing for people that if you're trying to get back to California or you're a big traveler to Sacramento, San Francisco, Napa, Sonoma, or you just, because again, where we live, I live in South Reno, it's an extra 30, 40 minutes to get to those areas where if you live in the Northwest and maybe you still work in California, I think it just makes it nice, good, easy access for people.
I think the Northwest, unless you know, you don't know. I mean, it's great. So you can jump on Highway 80 and you are in Truckee in 25 minutes or less. It's that close. But also, I live all the way out there on 4th Street.
Yeah.
and I can make it over to Ranchera in no more than 15 minutes.
And that's the part that people don't realize, because it kind of feels like Northwest is a little bit isolated. And especially like that first part of Northwest, which is mostly tract homes. There are some condos and townhomes. I was doing some research, and you can find stuff still in the 300,000s off of Charlins, just as you're getting into the Somersett area. So there's some definitely, when people start talking about affordable housing, you can definitely find some smaller, more affordable housing in this area. But as you go further back towards Somersett, like the amenities in Somersett, as far as like things like golf, and I know now when you come in that entrance, they have their clubhouse and pool, and there's a couple of restaurants. But the further you go back in those areas, there's not a whole lot back there besides residential living. I think that has some people shy away from it. But as far as Somersett goes, I mean, you used to be a member of the golf club in there. Like, what can you tell people about as you get further back in the Northwest, and now you're in this big master plan community where the homes can literally be $1 million or $2 million all the way down right when you first enter? There's condos and townhomes that are relatively inexpensive.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It is the epitome of a master plan community. When you first pull into Somersett and you start coming down that hill, it's like nothing else in Reno.
Right.
I mean, it is beautiful. And like you said, there's a spectrum of homes, from the townhouses in the village to the $4 million spec homes up on the mountain with the views overlooking the golf course.
I was thinking of it as a little bit tighter knit area, like where if you're in the South, the lower price stuff is on the one side of South Virginia where you're in the South Meadows. And then more of those high end $3 and $4 million, you got to come all the way to the other side and up Mount Rose Highway. Where in Somersett, you can get to all those things a little bit closer, and you all have access to an amazing pool. I mean, they have pool and gym and they got all the amenities, so you wouldn't necessarily have to leave Somersett unless you're really looking for grocery shopping or a lot bigger selection of restaurants. But that's the only real, downside to when you're out that far.
The food is good.
Yep.
In the village, but what they've done to the country club, I mean, the dining there is great. They've got a great bar, they've got an awesome restaurant. In the summer, you can sit out on the balcony. The food is really, really good. I highly recommend it.
I was saying a lot of these homes are on, and we mentioned briefly when you and I talked about golf, a lot of these homes are on the golf course. Why don't you tell people a little bit more that they can find out about the golf course if that's something important to them when they live in that community?
It's got a great membership. It's got a great group of people that get together. There are a ton of events. It's really, really fun. We talked briefly last time that there's actually a public little par 3 course. Take your kids out there. It's quite a hike, actually, but it's a lot of fun. Somersett is a tom kite course. It can be really, really, really hard.
It seems tight and narrow. Like, I've never played it, but I've sold houses up and around it. And there are parts of it, like, I always get a little nervous when I play golf around a lot of expensive homes, because the last thing I want to do is break a window or hit a roof. And it seems like it can be that way a little bit there, at least in certain spots.
Yeah. I mean, the fairways are actually really wide and the greens are really big.
Yeah.
There's just not much rough on either side of those. So if you're not hitting the fairway, you could be in some trouble. But the homes that surround the course are beautiful. I really, really enjoy being out there. It's as if you're not even in Reno.
Right.
It's kind of, it's in between Reno and Verdi. Really, really cool.
And for people like you, we just mentioned Verdi, but before we get to Verdi, as you're going further back in Somersett, and Somerset's just a series of roundabouts, so it's like, we always joke about how many roundabouts back are you. But as you get further back into Somersett, and for those people that might be 55 and over, there's an awesome Webb community back there. When I looked up before we did this video today, you can find all those units back there, and they're in the 500s, and they have a really cool club and all that stuff back there, gym, the whole thing, so that if you're in a 55 and over, you don't want to be around kids in a pool. I mean, the other stuff's amazing too, but you can separate yourself and be in more of an adult environment in the far back end. And now you get off the freeway going towards Verdi back to 80, where you don't have to drive all the way back through Somerset like you used to.
That's big.
Yeah.
I mean, to go all the way through Somerset is a little bit of a trek, but in the Webb community, down there closer to 80, I mean, you don't have the highway noise,
right?
But you just jump out and you're right on Highway 80. So you're not having to go through all the roundabouts to get there.
And I tell people, because it feels like you're way out there, but if you do that and you hit the freeway and you come back to Robb Drive, which is only about 2.5 miles, then you're right back to grocery stores, restaurants, amenities, gas banks, all the things that people are looking for. Because that is, again, that one section of the Northwest, it can be a little isolating depending on where you are with all that stuff. But as you get to the back of Somerset, then you have two areas that most people don't ever call me about, don't ask about a lot, which are Verdi and Mogul. My best friend, he grew up in Mogul. His parents still own a house in Mogul. Thing's got to be 50 years old. And it's this little tight section off there. There's not really much usually going on in Mogul. And over the years, I haven't sold a lot of homes back there, but there's a cool little pocket for people that do like older neighborhoods. I mean, do you know much about Mogul?
Probably shouldn't be saying this on camera, but the best fishing hole from the California state line down to Pyramid. I mean, I shouldn't have given that one away. but there is fantastic fishing right off the Mogul exit. My favorite spot. That area is it is so cool.
And it's just hidden. No, most people don't even realize, like, you see the sign says Mogul when you're driving on 80 towards California, but most people never ask me about it.
No, and you don't know unless you know.
Then as you go a little further out and you hit Verdi, there's a lot of stuff in Verdi that was there. My ex-wife lived in Verdi as a kid. They actually lived on the side of the highway where most of the stuff is not. I know there's a lot of new construction and things going on in those areas in Verdi now. Some of it's pretty close to the highway, but you can actually get a little off the beaten path in Verdi. And again, I'm sure there's other little holes. I know she used to ride her horse out there back in the day because there was lots of room. That's becoming less and less of a thing.
Well, there's a ton of new construction that you just mentioned in Verdi. There are a lot of homes for sale out there, and they're building even more on the other side of the highway, on the south side of the highway.
Right, the side that's a little less known.
The majority of what was already out there is horse property. My dear friend just leased 300 acres on the north side of the highway.
Okay.
It's for equestrian, it's for boarding horses, it's for teaching kids everything about horses.
It'd be super cool.
And they've built on the property a mountain bike course. It's really, really going to be.
And these are all those things that, like, unless people know someone local, you're not going to know a lot about the little secrets of Verdi and Mogul. That's exactly where my ex-wife, when she was in high school, she had a horse when she was young, and that was the whole point why they lived out there, because she could literally hop on her horse, almost ride her damn horse to school, but could ride all in those areas that people didn't really know about. My son, when he was in high school, had a girlfriend lived in that area. And so these are those pockets that people don't know about, but you're seeing more new construction and more things going out there. And again, the affordability of the Northwest, like I said, you can be anywhere, condos and townhomes under $400,000 all the way up to homes in Somersett and in Verdi for millions and millions of dollars.
There's everything. And you're so close to everything.
Right.
Once again, I mean, we didn't talk about downtown Verdi.
Yeah, right.
You could probably take a football and throw it from one side
to the other.
The restaurants are great.
Yeah.
The food's awesome. You go down and everyone knows each other. Downtown Verdi is really, really, really cute.
And they've done, like in Verdi, I kind of look at it similar to like a spot like Hidden Valley, where there was these neighborhoods that were there forever and ever and ever, and no one built a thing down there. And then 30 years goes by, and now there's these pockets of new homes. So you kind of have a mix of these new versus old. You know, there is a little bit of heartburn from the people who live in these areas when all this new construction comes in. But as our area in Northern Nevada grows, and you know, being a lender and me being a realtor, that the overall growth of these areas is just going to continue to happen. And I think pockets like Verdi, Somerset's getting almost, totally built out. I mean, I remember these areas 20 years ago, there was nothing in these areas. And now they're just massive. If you're thinking about living in the Northwest, one, like we just talked about some other videos, you can always reach out to me and Seamus. We can get you to kind of figure out what your affordability factor is, what kind of loans you can get for those areas, because they're not all the same, especially if you're on some more rural horse property type properties versus more of these standard type homes. You can be anywhere from the 300s all the way up to as expensive you want to be. So there's room for everyone in these neighborhoods.
There are a lot of neighborhoods in the Northwest that are not part of an HOA.
Right.
And then you have the exact opposite in Somerset, where everything is really under an HOA, and there are a number of rules so that people aren't parking their RVs in front of your house.
Exactly.
But there's all those different mixes. And I think that people that love to ski,
you're on a completely different end of the lake.
Less than 10 minutes to the California state line.
Yep.
So you're living as close to California as you can without paying California state income tax.
On that north end of the lake, and again, most of it's in California, between the ski resorts, the golf resorts, there's just a lot going on that north end of the lake. And if you live on the south end of Reno, I know whether it's Mount Rose Highway or going all the way down through Carson and going up Geiger Grade and getting to South Lake, to me, those are the two hot spots of the lake. It's completely different access depending on what you're looking for, what's important to you. And like I said, I think there's probably more going on in the North Lake, but both those areas, it makes it super convenient to get to.
Being from the North Lake, I'm a little biased.
This from the guy who lives part-time in Incline.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, guys. If you have any specific questions about anything Northwest Reno, Somersett, Verdi, Mogul Islands, reach out to us. If you need information about getting a loan, reach out to me. I can get you in touch with Seamus. And we appreciate watching the video. So subscribe to the channel, and hopefully you're getting a lot of good information about all things Northern Nevada and Lake Tahoe. Thanks for watching.